What's up, guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. We just got over here at Mike's shop. Mike's here. Look at his display. He's like, I got everything laid out. He's not kidding. This is freaking awesome. This will make it much easier to build the transmission. So we got the transmission apart a couple weeks ago. So he finally got everything to put it all back together, and he was out of town for a little bit. So let's throw this Power Glide together. Let me show you what all we're going to do. Comment, like, and subscribe. Go to turbojohnracing.com to grab yourself some merchandise. Thanks, guys. All right, guys. Well, starting over here, you can see he got a nice TSI case. And this is the first time I've ever seen one of these. And, of course, it's got the bell housing that is mounted to the case. So this is similar to, like, the Reed stuff. And this is a nice little setup. But, of course, he made it so that it works with the lift. Real handy. So this case has got no parts and pieces. So this is his old one. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get these sitting the same way. And then we'll basically take these hard parts off and take these and go ahead and move them over to there. Torque converter, he polished it up. He was cleaning it and all the paint popped off. So he went ahead and polished it. So that thing turned out good. He's got all his parts and pieces. The pump's clean. This is a factory pump. Not going to do anything with this. Replacing the factory servo stuff. You know, he's got a 10 clutch assembly down here now. It'll probably end up getting 9 clutches. I'll show you how we do that. This was the one that he had. This case comes with a shield in it. This is his planetary setup. It's a 169 cryo. It's a TSI straight cut gear set. So that's always awesome. One of the things in these drums, of course, you got to always make sure you put these nice pieces in it so it don't kill these splines. These come aluminum from the factory. It's already got the cut down piston that'll go in there. So, you know, you just gotta be careful when you're putting these things in, making sure that seal doesn't get seal, popped. It's got an aftermarket servo. These are gonna be spare clutches on the high gear. We're gonna use the red ones. And it's got all the kit stuff over here. So we're gonna stick this thing together real fast. When we get to harder parts and pieces, I'll stop and try to let you know what we're doing. All right, guys, so we currently got our tail kicked by that little spring back there. So for anybody that ever takes this thing apart, make sure you pay attention. The long piece of the spring goes through the arm, and then the little short piece goes on the other side of the case there. And I didn't show that good on my other videos, and you can kind of see it, but the parking prowl. So this thing just goes and presses against the parking prowl to engage it. And then it goes back here. So that is how the parking prowl works. I don't know if I'm saying it right or not. I know somebody will probably correct me. That's it. So that is the way the spring goes. Big end goes that way, little end goes in toward the case. All right, guys, so we got the rear reverse piston in. So it has 2 rings on that, one that goes on the middle, one that goes on the outside. And then you've got the steel. So, of course, you alternate steel, clutch, steel, clutch, steel, clutch, steel, clutch. It is never acceptable to put 2 clutches side by side. It is sometimes acceptable to have 2 steel side by side. So first thing you want to do is figure out the orientation. These can only go one way. See the notch, the way the thing is. It's on the bottom left. So it makes your life a lot easier once you realize which way that goes. And then you just alternate them. And so steel clutch, steel clutch, steel clutch, steel clutch. So we got that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the springs in it, and we're going to put the top in it to hold the piston in. All right, so Mike got the springs in there. So now the cap goes on, and then we have to stick the tool in there to compress it down to hold it in the case. All right, guys, so I got the spring on there, the little retainer. So that worked out pretty good. He's got the little tool that basically goes in there and it just turns sideways, and it's got a little, it's got a threaded rod with a piece that holds that down. Very simple to install. So now he's cleaning off the steels. We'll toss stills in there, steel clutch, steel clutch, steel clutch. Put it all together, and then we air check it. This port right here is the one that goes in there, but you don't do that until you get it all together, and then you check the clearances and make sure it applies. So we got all the clutches in there, and now you put the pressure plate in there. And now we just get the snap ring and put the snap ring in, and then we'll turn it over and check the clearance. Generally 50, 60 thousandths in the reverse here. So we ended up having 6 clutches in there. Apparently if you want to have 6 clutches in there, you have to have a different type of thinner top plate. So, all right, cool. Let's turn this over. And you can see it's got clearance. You can hear it kind of flopping in there. So we're gonna check the clearance real fast. Super easy to check clearance on these things. You've got a spot right here where the clutches are exposed, and that's where you kind of prime apart, and then you check them. And then we'll put air on it and it'll actually engage it. So basically all you're gonna do is, while I reach my hand in here, I'm gonna kind of pull it apart, kind of take some pressure off of it, and then he can stick the filler gauge in there, and you can see the gap in the back. Okay, stick it like that right there. So that right there is too much.
We'll try 32, see if it goes. Yeah, 32 goes. So
was it pretty easy or pretty?
No, it went right in.
Okay. So it's gonna be about 40 or 50, about right where we want it.
Let me find a 10.
Okay.
We'll go 30 and 10. Let's see if we can make that work. That's 40.
So 40 is pretty snug.
Yep, it goes in, but it's tight.
Okay, so it's a tight 40. So, I mean, that's, you know, we got 5 clutches. So that's, if you do 8 times 5 is what?
40.
40. So if you, instead of 10 thousandths. All right, let's get that with compressed air and see how that goes. And there again, this is, you know, if you get this too loose, it's a problem. Just yeah, hit it kind of easy. And watch this. All right, let go. See what it's doing? Go ahead. Applying, let go, and off. And that's what happens when it's applied. Apply. Boom, that's perfect. Okay, so that clutch pack is working good. All right, so putting the servo on it now. He did not get the newest servo. One of them's got a different, it's got some type of dual pressure thing to keep it from applying. Pin bias effect is what Sonics calls it. So he's putting this on real fast. So he's gonna air check that real fast. Just blowing up that hole. All right, there you go. So that just gets a pipe plug. If you ever want to check pressure, you can go right there. Guys, so the next piece that goes in is this. We got the bushing in. It's on the planetary, but we'll drop that off. This is kind of tricky. The easiest way is to kind of try to get this thing, the clutches lined up the best you can. And then this just drops down in there, and this will line up with the clutches. And just basically just kind of shimmy it down in there, and then you just twist it and move it, and you can kind of count as they go down in there. And there it goes. It's all the way down in there. So now he's going to drop the planetary down in there. We already got the bushing on it. We got that clean. It's on there on the bottom of the planetary. This is where you have to be careful and not grab your fingers. And there you go. And so that is good. One thing sometimes hard to get out. Depends on the gear set. Some of them don't even come out. Like, you have to actually take the gears out to get them out. That one, I think that one is one of those. Okay, so now this is where you can check your parking prowl. And you see how this
Turn it up.
twist it just a little bit. Leave it down. Boom, there's your park. And sometimes you get optional part. That's what happens when it's optional part. It's not, the linkage is not engaging all the way. But that right there is exactly what part is. And then it goes into part there, and then it's got spring tension, and then it pops in. So that is great. So he bought a nice little tool off of Amazon to compress this piece here so we can disassemble the high gear clutch pack. It's pretty nice. I'm gonna have to put this phone down and help you. Oh, you might have got it. Oh, look at there. Good job. All right. Very good. All right, let's get into that. We might have to spread that out a little bit. Yep. Boom, y'all. Man, that's an awesome little tool for 30 bucks. Okay. So now you just gotta loosen that up, and this will come completely apart. And so the reason he's changing, he got this high gear clutch hub. We thought it was going to be fully assembled, but it's not. So we just got to stick this in there. Probably this is cut down, and this is probably clearance a little bit more.
So 10 clutches.
For 10 clutches. So I'll show you how to measure that stuff here. You have to be careful. This is the seal that gets screwed up. We have to take a thin filler gauge and kind of get it down in there. All right, guys, so we got this down in there, and the way this is designed, it's got like an umbrella. So what you have to do is when the seal's on the bottom, you take a very thin filler gauge and basically just go around and make sure the seal is down. You don't want to necessarily hold it down in there and cut it like a knife. You kind of want to saw it to get it so that it goes all the way down, and it goes around, and then once the seal gets down, it goes bloop, and it pops all the way down. And that's what ours did. And so now we're all the way down. So we're going to go ahead and drop the filler gauges so that we don't have to use them again. And then we put the springs on it. The way they had it set up before, some people, it's like preference. I hadn't done enough testing to know exactly. They had 2, and then they were missing 1. So 2 and then missing 1. And you know, that changes how hard the clutch engages. So of course, if you had you know, every other one out, then when the pressure hits, it's going to make it so that it hits harder. And if you had all of them in there, and if you had the little wavy steel, then that would make it hit softer. So using a little bit of transmission goop to hold the springs in place, and then we'll stick it back in. All right, guys, so he got the snap ring back in here. You can see every other spring is missing. So this is an 8 clutch hub instead of 10. So there again, down on the bottom, you have to have a steel. So this will be the bottom, steel clutch, all the way up. Now the top one is a clutch, and you can actually let this ride on it. So he's got the one over there he's having to deburr it a little bit. It's kind of a little knotty in here. So I'm gonna show you how to check the clearances in a second. All right, guys, so this fits down nice and tight, and the snap ring goes right in there. But the first thing I always do to see if you're pretty close is you do a shake test. You pick it up and you shake it. You can hear the actual air gap in there. So this is 8 clutches, so you want 8 to 10 thousandths. The only way you can do this is by putting the snap ring in it. And then once the snap ring is in it, you measure the distance from the bottom of the snap ring, here to the clutch pack. You take that distance, and then you mic this distance, and you subtract this one from this one. You subtract this one from this one, and that'll give you the clearance. So let's do that real fast. All right, so the easiest thing to do is to stick some filler gauges in here. So we got the filler gauges in here. We've got some tension on it, and he is measuring that.
122.5.
So 122.5, he's gonna mic this, and then we'll subtract. Okay, so 234 minus 124. What does that equal? You good at math?
No.
All right, guys, so that gives us about 110 thousandths of clearance. And the reason you have to do it like that is because this slides under there. So generally you want about 10 thousandths per clutch, and you know, probably a little bit more is probably going to be a little bit better than a little bit less. And the reason why is because when you're in first gear, these clutch packs are turning, right? And so if you have too much clearance, then it's a problem because you don't get enough pressure back here potentially when the drum applies or the piston. But if you have too little, it gives a ton of friction. The other thing we're not accounting for, these are dry, so there's no oil on them, so they are going to probably swell up a little bit, and the oil takes cushion. So we don't really have a way to do anything different now anyway. The only option we would have is if we wanted to, they make different thicknesses of these, and so you can get a thicker one, and you can have one thick one or one thin one. But I'm happy with the way it is. I mean, that will be perfectly fine. This will work great. So now we're going to take it back apart. He's going to soak these real fast, and then we're going to put it back together. Now, one of the things to make sure when you put this on, before you, here, go ahead and take those out. And we'll go ahead and do it. So one of the easiest ways to get these things down on there like they're supposed to be is you take this and set it down on there. And then when this sets on there, you can stack the clutches on. Before you do that, you got to put these in. So that goes right there. That's your little bushing that rides. And this one right here actually rides there on the bottom of this. So we'll lube all that up. This will go in right there. And then we'll stack it, steel clutch, steel clutch, steel clutch, and then put that on, and then the high gear clutches. All right, guys, so we got the clutches in. Mike got his hands. He was the one handling the clutches. I had to clean stuff. So the easiest way, like I was saying, is to make sure this spline piece is down in the hub, and then the clutches just pop right down on there. If you don't do that, then you have to fiddle with this to get it all the way down in there. So next thing, this right here goes on top, put a little bit of grease on that. Did you say you had a new wedding band also?
Yes, there's all somewhere here at the bottom.
Is this piece right here, a Power Glide wedding band. I'll let him open that up, and then we will make sure that that fits on the input shaft properly before we slide it in here. Because sometimes they have burrs on, so it goes on down here, and that slides on perfect. And all that does is just, it helps center everything in, with the shaft, okay? So we'll put a little bit of lube on that. Very tight, but there you go. And then if you take, here, we'll go ahead and put the clamp on it real fast. And then I like to take the shaft and slide it down in there and make sure you got plenty of clearance, so you'll feel the resistance. So very easy to snap this on. All right, so that's popped in all the way around. Now do the shake test, Mike. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Still shook. So now let's take the input shaft while he's holding it up. We'll stick this down in through there. That's in the clutch pack. And so we're turning the clutch pack. And I can feel that there's resistance, but it's not locked up. So that's a good thing. Okay, so now we're ready to take this and go put it in transmission. So this is a tricky part. There again, you just don't want to pinch your fingers. This goes down just like that. Just have to very carefully.
How do you keep that centered?
Yep.
It's self-centered?
Mm-hmm. It centers itself on the end of the snout. And there you go. Okay, so now the next piece is we got to install the band over here and the adjuster we didn't do. So let's stick that in. All right, guys, the way I do it, we drop this down in here. Then he's got this, this is the metal explosion proof, makes the bell housing. So if the drum explodes, it doesn't come through it. But we'll drop that in there. We'll put the adjuster in here. And then you have to be really careful to make sure that this right here is not hitting anywhere. Because on my case, I've got a JW case, and I really had to modify this piece to get it so that it cleared. But you can see we got plenty of clearance everywhere. It's nice and snug. So we're in good shape there. So we got this snugged up right now, so we'll have to loosen it up just a tad. But next thing we're gonna do is drop the pump down in here. And when we get the pump down in here, you adjust this band. A lot of people screw up and they'll adjust this band with it like this or upside down. And that never works. It's gotta be in the orientation that the actual transmission is. So like it's in the car, grab the input shaft and output shaft and spin it, and then you're good. All right, guys, so the pump is ready. It's got new Teflon seals on it. This is the bushing. Now, this is the one out of the old motor. I don't know if we got new bushing there or not, but they come in different thicknesses. And this bushing, you can also get it in a roller, and that's how you adjust in play. So I don't think the kits that he ordered, it has one. So, I mean, that's probably the standard size, but if something's wrong, then we can change that. So you just put the gasket on it here. The other thing to note, he's got a couple of these gaskets here. This thing, you got these two holes here. This is the main hole for the bolt hole, but this is a feed and a feed. I don't know actually which way it goes what. So that always goes down when you do this. So you know which one it is. It's easy. I mean, if you put a stud, it's not the exact right size, but it will help you guide yourself so you're in the right spot. So I did loosen this up to make sure that it slides down in there properly. And so now he's going to stick that on there. Turn it over. It'll only go one way. All the, everything is directional. Seems like. See, and everything lines up. Got the bolt holes right, and you got the big slot over here and the little slot over here. So now this is ready for the pump to go. Now one of the things when they took it out, they had silicone all over this on this outer edge, and there's a lot of wetness. And then when you look at these bolts, they've got little rubber things on it too to help seal it. But I also put a dab of silicone on each one of these threads when we're putting it in there and putting it together. So, I don't know, Mike, it's up to you if you want to put silicone around this edge or not. Sometimes you just put, I mean, if it's a new bore, so, probably if we just lubricate it, it'll probably be fine.
I said we just lube it and see what happens.
Because it's one of those things. This is brand spanking new, so this bore is in good shape. So, as you got older stuff, that's when it becomes a problem with sealing. So, you're going to slide this down in there. Make sure they're all lined up before you tap it down in there. Make sure it looks good. This stud is a little bit loose. It should wobble itself right on back down in there. And it's very tight, of course. All right, I'll get a dead blow hammer and tap it in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check the end play. Before we tighten these up real good, he's got that smack down in there pretty good. Now this will go right down in there and just twist it back and forth. And it'll bite itself in there. I think that's quite in there. There we go. So that goes all the way in, and it can still spin. Pick up on the planetary down there and see. We should hear a clunk clunk. We might have grease. We might have to turn it over on its side. Okay, let's put a couple bolts in it to make sure this is tight, and then we'll check in play. Okay, guys, so we were about to stick these bolts in, and it bottomed out, and we didn't think about it. His other transmission had an Ultra Bell on it, so the bolts were longer. So took our handy-dandy micrometer, stick it down, bottom it out in the hole, and go down. You can see we got 1.850. So 1 3/4 bolt would probably work. He's got some 1.5, which that'll give us plenty of thread engagement. So we should be, the threads start at 0.9. So generally, as long as you get, yeah, we'll be good. 1 3/4 would be ideal, but he's at 1.5 inches.
2, 3, 4, 5,
and these are grade 5s. The other ones were grade 8, but there's a little bit of a difference. Even though the bolts are the same size, he had grade 8s, but the bell housing was being held on. These you don't torque down, but like 15, 20 foot-pounds of torque. So it's not like, these are not structural integrity. So the other thing we like to do, these things have the sealing ring on it here, but we'll also put a dab of silicone on the threads and then tighten that stuff down. And you can't put this pump down in the wrong spot, so that's a good thing. All right, guys, so he's got the torque on those. He's using the Redneck torque gauge, about this tight, a 1 ugga dugga. Is that what they call it? So we're good there. We did check in on the other side. You can hear it clunk, 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 back and forth. So it's got maybe 10 or 15
to 30.
Okay, so we got close 25-ish on the end clearance. So that's pretty close. There you go. And we got a lot of grease on there. So, that's one of the things. You know, it is what it is. We can't change it now. I mean, right?
Nope.
I mean, we didn't put a roller thrust system in it. You have to, I mean, ideally you want those a little tighter, but that should be fine. All right, guys, so we got this thing sitting the right way. We turned the input shaft and output shaft so that we can get this pretty close. I think that is pretty close to my normal tightness. Mike's got an inch gauge, so it's supposed to be 72 inch-pounds. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see if I'm right. 72 inch-pounds, and then you back it off. It depends on who you ask. Somewhere between 3.5 and 4 turns from the 72. All right, here we go. Let's see what we got. 72 inch-pounds.
That's right.
Yep, 72. That was way off, wasn't it? What is it?
That's 10, 12. Still climbing.
Oh, geez, I missed it way bad.
Getting any yellow.
That ain't right. Something ain't right.
No. I'm going by what you say.
You sure that ain't foot-pounds?
It says inch-pounds.
I have been.
That means right there's your yellow, so. Ooh.
All right, that's 73 inch-pounds. So he torqued it to 72. I have been doing, well, I thought 72 was a lot less than that. So now he's gonna back it out 3.5 turns.
It's 1, 2, 3, and 1/2.
Yep. And so, you know, as easy as I've been doing, I've been backing, realistically, mine's been going out 3.5 turns from not quite so torqued. So probably mine is 4.5 turns out. That might be why mine hits the tire so hard. Is because the band releases a little faster than the high gear clutches apply. And so it kind of does like a little flare, although I don't see a flare. But that might be what it is. Okay, so that is done according to spec. So the valve body is now in. He's tightening that up. This is actually what controls the shift of the transmission. So you have to make sure that this is actually in the valve. Back here is the trans brake solenoid. So this engages back here. And then this is what we actually, this plate holds it in the right spot. If some transmissions have a thing where this kind of wraps around or links up to it somehow, to where you don't have to have this plate. But if you don't have this plate, that'll come off, and see, you lose it, and then you have no shifting. So all right, guys, so this is down, trans brake, solenoid. This one is spring loaded. Some of them, mine has no spring inside. And if you press it once without the car running, it just stays in. It uses fluid pressure to push it out. So you got to make sure you put this spring on it, this plate, like I was saying, so that all this lines up and it moves and does like it's supposed to. And there's our gear selector. So you go, that's our park, and then it locks in, and then the car rolls and it's there. Okay, so the front of it's done. This is fine. Now all we gotta do is put the tail shaft on. He's got a roller tail shaft housing, so we're gonna stick that on. And then all that's left is putting pan on it. And he'll be ready to make some passes. All right, so the tail shaft is on and bolted. What's next? Pan?
Filter and pan.
That's it. And it is done. Looking like a good transmission, guys. Not bad at all.
And one more mention about the difference in these filters.
Oh yeah, Mike, he bought 2 filters. One come from TSI and the other came from
FTI.
FTI. And they've both got the thin mesh, but if you look through the mesh, one's got the real big and one's got real small. That's the big one and that's the small one. It's kind of hard to get them side by side to be able to. There you go, I got them. One's got big mesh, one's got little mesh. I would think the little one would actually support this mesh, the fine mesh, better than the big, but I don't know if there's a big difference or not.
Don't know either.
Don't know. We're gonna put the little one on it just because it seems like it'll have more support. 100% make sure that if you do use hydraulic fluid or the blue hydraulic plus, that's what I use. If you use anything other than the red transmission fluid, make sure you have one of these with the screen on it, not a paper element. The paper kind of is a little tight. So, all right, we're almost done with this. I guess we're gonna wrap it up. Y'all seen pans put on transmissions before? Nothing to it. Mike, it was fun. Should be a pretty interesting video. I'm not saying we are professional transmission builders. This is the first time Mike's ever done one. And it's apparently the first time I've done some of the parts in a while. So it took a little while to get it all together, but we got it. So here we go. We'll see how it works. Y'all comment, like, and subscribe. This is how we did a Power Glide. Later, guys.